Welcome back into Cody Talks NFL, presented by Blitzalytics.com. And here's your host, Cody Manning.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Friday edition of Cody Talks NFL, where I'm here to talk about all 32 teams and what's going on as we head into the weekend's action of football. I'm going to start off always with my three biggest news pieces that I feel like that have came out over the last week since our Monday episode. I thought I was done with it on Monday, guys. Guess what? AB's here, and apparently he wants to stay here on my news list. The drama somehow continues since he has joined the Patriots. I'm sure you guys know about it. I'll urge you guys to go look into the details. I'm not going to sit here and go over the details, but he is now being sued in civil court, which is alleged sexual assault and rape against AB. I'm not going to give my opinion on that. I always like to let the court play things out, innocent till proven guilty. That's how I've always been standing on that. If there's any updates that do come with that, I will, of course, talk about it. But, of course, if this is true, if there's any truth to this, obviously AB should be kicked out of the league, in my opinion. That's something that we got to – the NFL needs to hold a standard when it comes to stuff like that. But let that situation play out in court, because obviously if anybody knows the Brian Banks story, there's a movie that came out about it recently. Sometimes, there are false allegations against players like AB. So let's see this thing play out. But as of right now, as far as the football side of things, he's been practicing with the Patriots this week. The expectation is that he's not going to be put on the commissioner's exempt list. It looks like he will play against Miami. So it will be interesting to see if he does line up for Miami, if he's going to get a limited amount of snaps, or they're just going to let him play and go do his thing. I would, with how the Patriots run their offense, I would anticipate that he'll probably play a limited amount of snaps. Plus, they could win this game easily against the Dolphins without AB. So moving on, the biggest piece of news that came out yesterday was Sam Darnold, the quarterback for the New York Jets, has mono. And yes, he is a 21-year-old quarterback, not 13, but he has mono. So he is out against the Browns on Monday. He's already, I guess the Jets have already quarantined him. He's already lost 5 pounds because of this. He's likely going to miss the Patriots game. They have a bye week after the Patriots, and then they anticipate he'll be back after the bye week, and he'll be going against the Eagles. Obviously, that hurts the Jets' chances. They're already banged up on the defensive side of the ball, so the Jets could easily start 0-4 this year. That's probably one of the most cursed franchises in the NFL, it feels like. Moving on, there is some validity to the report that came out since last weekend that the Dolphins players were going to request a trade. Well, report came out during the game last night that the Dolphins have granted permission to Mika Fitzpatrick to seek a trade. The report is that the Dolphins are actively trading him. They're not actively shopping him, but they're not really using him in the right way. Fitzpatrick's a utility belt on the defense. He can play at the safety spot. He can play in the nickel spot. He can play as a slot corner. You can kind of line him up all over if a defensive coordinator understands how to use him right. That's pretty crazy for him. From what I understand, the price is too high on him. The Dolphins want a first-round pick. Obviously, they're not going to get a first-round pick if he wants out of there, that they lose any type of leverage on that type of deal. They're probably going to have to settle for a second-round pick from what it sounds like. And I anticipate, all 31 teams should be interested in him. Now, obviously, not all 31 teams will be interested in him because they might have already players at his position and there's not that necessary need for him. But per Jason from overthecap.com, he said because of the way rookie contracts are structured, the Dolphins have actually already paid about 64% of Fitzpatrick's entire 4-year contract in his rookie year. So it's going to be a bargain deal for the 3 years coming up, leading up to that 5th-year option. So he's very cheap right now. So I think he'll go somewhere. I don't know where. Maybe a team like the Steelers, maybe a team like the Seahawks, maybe like the Broncos or somebody that might need some secondary help, who might reach out to the Dolphins about getting him. That'll be a situation to monitor over this next coming weeks as it leads up to the trade deadline. Moving on, last night's game, the Bucs beat the Panthers 20-14. That was a little bit of a snore fest for most people, which I understand. I enjoyed it because anytime it's a close game, regardless of the score, I always have uh, find a good viewing experience just because I do also like defensive play. It was a defensive battle. Both defenses were getting after quarterbacks. Cam Cam just didn't look like Cam. It was one of his worst performances last night. He was missing easy throws that would have got the Panthers in scoring position. The defense did enough where the Panthers should have won this game. Jameis Winston, he had an up and down game. He was a lot smarter last night. He didn't have no turnovers. So there is a step in the right direction, right? Can he build upon that? Peyton Barber was solid last night. I would have liked to see them play Rojo a little bit more in the running game, but that defense was phenomenal. The defense contains Christian McCaffrey. That's why they won. They didn't allow him to make any of those explosive plays that McCaffrey's known for. And also that defense was able to create pressure. Coming into the week, the Bucs only had 1 sack last week, and they had the second lowest pressure percentage entering the week. Well, Jack Barrett had 3 sacks last night. They were in Cam's face all night, making him force terrible throws, which he was already doing on his own. So we'll see where both teams go from this. Now the Panthers are 0-2. I mean, if this continues, how long will Ron Rivera last this season? His seat is getting warmer by the moment. I'm interested to see how Cam takes the next step. Like I was talking to my producer, Rob, before this show. Remember last year, like the second week, Andrew Luck's shoulder was questioned, right? Coming back from that injury, and he looked bad against the Eagles. People were wondering if he was done. And then the third game, everything clicked for him, and he went on to have a great year. So I'm interested to see how Cam looks over the next 2 weeks. But if Cam looks like he did the beginning part of this season and last night, and it continues, who knows how much longer we got of Cam in the NFL. Couple notes from last night. Devin White, the first-round pick for the Bucs, he left with an injury. Pewter reported that it was a knee sprain, but there's going to be an MRI that will confirm that. Now, I always want to wait till the MRI because how many times have we heard like it's just a sprain and then the MRI finds out it's an MCL or ACL tear. So hopefully he's okay. Look out that on the news wire, and of course, if there's any significant news from that injury coming out, I will be talking about that on Monday. Last little note, Greg Olsen, I just wanted to bring this up. He actually moved into the top 5 of all-time receiving yards at the tight end position. Something I brought up on my Twitter and to my Blitz team members last night. Is he considered a Hall of Fame career? You know, he doesn't have that Super Bowl. He's in the top 5 receiving yards. I do feel like that. I feel like him, how I feel like Frank Gore. Long-term, consistent performers, just weren't on make great teams to get that Super Bowl. They're in their respective position and the stats where you'd want to be when you retire. So I don't think he's a first ballot guy, but I think Greg Olsen should be in the Hall of Fame one day. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to my previews for the Sunday games, starting off with the 1 o'clock my time, the first set of games. Arizona Cardinals are traveling out to Baltimore. No major news with either team. No major significant injuries for the Cardinals right now. With the Ravens, Jimmy Smith is expected to miss with his knee injury. He has not practiced this week. Marlon Humphrey has been limited with a back injury, and Marquise Brown, who went off last week, has been limited with a hip injury, but the report is that he's expected to play. This is going to be an interesting game. You know, Lamar Miller versus Kyler Murray, 2 Heisman Trophy winners. We're going to see, 2 young guys that could be the future of the NFL go face-to-face. But honestly, I think it's going to be a long afternoon for the Cardinals. They're traveling from the West Coast all the way out to the East Coast. The Ravens are feeling great about themselves. They're at home. I think the Ravens handle the Cardinals pretty easily and make things rough on Kyler Murray. They should be able to get pressure on him and try to force turnovers throughout the day and then just play ball control from that offense and run the ball with Mark Ingram. And I would anticipate Lamar Jackson get more carries himself. So I have the Ravens probably easily winning that game. Moving on to the next game, the Dallas Cowboys are traveling out to Washington to face the Redskins. Couple of news couple news updates on both teams. There's been a report Taco Charlton, the former first-round pick of the Cowboys, was inactive against the Giants on Sunday, and the report is that he's actually being shopped around to other teams as a potential trade candidate. And then a little update on Darius Geis. He did undergo a surgery this week to trim his meniscus. He's reported to miss the next 6 to 8 weeks. It just sucks as that guy cannot just stay healthy, and I don't know if he ever will be so far. I mean, just based on what we've seen in his short year and a half, not even a year and a half yet in his career. As far as injury updates for each team, notable injuries anyways, Zach Martin, he's been limited with a back injury, and if my memory serves me right, he was last week too, so he should be good to go. Jonathan Allen he hasn't practiced this week with his knee injury. He'll probably more likely not play. Quentin Dunbar, his knee injuries forced him not to practice. Fabian Moreau was limited with an ankle injury. Monte Nicholson's been limited with a foot injury, and Jordan Reed is still limited with that concussion. So the Redskins are pretty banged up on their side So as far as how I feel like this game's going to go, I think the Cowboys defense won't let up a bunch of passing yards like the Eagles did this past week. I think they should be able to get pressure. Trent Williams has not reported yet, so they still don't have him. So I think the Redskins are going to struggle throughout the afternoon against the Cowboys. I expect a bigger workload for Zeke. They're going to get Amari Cooper involved, Michael Gallup, and I just see the Cowboys easily winning this game. I don't think this will be a close game like the Redskins did to the Eagles last week. I think they just caught the Eagles off guard because it's week 1. I think we're going to see the real Case Keenum this week, and we'll be seeing turnovers and sacks. So I got the Cowboys easily winning this one. Moving on, the Indianapolis Colts are traveling to the Tennessee Titans. No major news with each team this week. Jabal Sheard still hasn't practiced with that knee injury, so I don't expect him to play. Kimiko Toure did not practice with his neck injury. Now, he was a DNP at this point of the week last week, and then he was able to play, and he got a couple sacks against the Chargers. Titans, Kevin Panfield didn't play last week, and he has not practiced this week. Their guard. As far as this, I think this is going to be a close AFC South matchup. I think this is going to be a defensive type game, something low scoring. I do think I can see this coming down to a field goal. Whoever has the ball at the end of the game, it's going to be a good game. For those that know me, I want to say Colts, but I got to give it up to the Titans. They did impress last week, but as a fan, I think the Colts can squeeze this out, but I also can see the Titans easily winning on a last-minute field goal. Like I said, I think this can go either way, whoever has the ball at the end of the game. Moving on, the Seattle Seahawks are traveling out to the Pittsburgh and face the Steelers. As far as news, no major news injury for each team. With the Seahawks, Poona Ford is in practice this week with the calf injury. Nico Thorpe hasn't practiced with a hamstring injury, and Tyler Lockett was limited yesterday with a back injury. Now with the Steelers, they are dealing with 2 major new injuries right now, with Joe Hayden his shoulder injury and Marquise Pouncey with his ankle injury. Both those guys have not practiced this week. As far as how I feel like this game could go, now it seems like with Seattle traveling out to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh coming off a terrible performance from against the Patriots, one would assume that this is a get-right game for the Steelers, and something tells me the Steelers will win this game. But I also see, if the Steelers come out and look like they did against the Patriots, I can see the Seahawks easily walking away with a W. But I think this is going to be a get-right game for the Steelers. I think somehow they find a way to pull this off. I think this could be a high-scoring game because both pass defenses on both sides of the ball are not that great. So I think this is going to be like a 31-27 game. Pittsburgh finds a way to win. Moving on to the next game of the afternoon, the Buffalo Bills are traveling to New York to face the Giants. There's no major news with either team as well on this. The news has been light this week as we head into the week 2. With the Bills, with injuries, Tyler Kroft still limited with a foot injury. Levi Wallace was limited with an ankle injury. Cole Beasley, he didn't practice yesterday. He's dealing with an illness. Now I anticipate he'll probably play, like most players do if they're dealing with any type of sickness, unless it's really bad when it comes on game day. Now the Giants, it seems like ever since trading OBJ, they have been cursed at the wide receiver position because Corey Latimer's dealing with a calf, Sterling Shepard's dealing with a concussion, and Darius Slayton is dealing with a hamstring. All 3 of those guys have not practiced, so they're 3 wide receivers are not practicing as we head into week 2. Big week for Evan Ingram if their passing attack's going to do anything. Dexter Lawrence, their first round pick, was limited with a shoulder injury. So the Giants are pretty banged up as far as their passing attack goes. Expect a heavy workload for Saquon Barkley as well. As far as how I think this game's going to go, I think they're going to be able to, with no passing options, I expect the Buffalo Bills defense, who already have one of the best defenses in the NFL, to stack the box against Saquon and limit his opportunities. If all 3 of those receivers aren't playing on Sunday, which they're not really a major threat themselves, I expect them to probably put their best defender that they can on Evan Ingram. So I think they're going to be able to limit the Giants' offense. And then we saw what Dak Prescott did last week against the Giants. So I think Josh Allen's in store for a big game. He should be able to throw all over their defense. So I think the Bills are going to pretty easily win this game. But I see them winning by like a touchdown or 10 points. I think it's going to be a good day for the Buffalo Bills. Moving on, San Francisco is traveling out to Cincinnati. There's no major news with either team on that one as well. For injuries, as far as entering today, Nick Bosa hasn't practiced this week with the ankle injury. Of course, this is expected. Tevin Coleman hasn't practiced with his ankle injury. Jalen Hurd hasn't practiced with a back injury, and Jimmy Ward's limited still with that broken hand that he did last week in practice. Same thing with the Bengals. As expected, A.J. Green hasn't practiced with his ankle injury. Joe Mixon has not practiced this week with that ankle injury. So that is something that's going to be something to monitor as we head into Sunday. There will be more news on that when the final injury reports come out this afternoon. But if he doesn't play, that's really going to hurt the chances, in my opinion, for the Bengals to pull this one off. And then Cordy Glenn, their offensive lineman, still hasn't practiced with a concussion. I really don't know how I feel about this game. Because it is an East Coast team traveling out to the West Coast, Midwest, more with it being in Ohio. Bengals, I guess if this was preseason, like what I thought of the Bengals, I would easily think the 49ers would handle business here. But from what we saw from the Bengals in Seattle, they did show that they could put up the ball. If Andy Dalton plays like he did last week, this is going to come down to the wire, I feel like, especially with Tevin Coleman and Nick Bosa dealing with injuries like they are right now. But I want to trust Kyle Shanahan to come up with a scheme against this team. And I think the 49ers walk away, but I do think it's going to be a close matchup. But I think the 49ers will find a way to win this game, maybe like a 24-20 type win. Maybe a last-minute field goal. It's going to be a close one, but I think San Fran finds a way to get the job done. Moving on to the next game, the Chargers are traveling out to Detroit to face the Lions. The major news that dropped since the Cody Talks NFL Monday Monday show is Hunter Henry. I feel so bad for this guy. He just can't stay healthy. He suffered a fractured left knee. He's going to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks. The guy just, for whatever reason, can't stay healthy. He was looking great against the Colts on Sunday as well. So that's going to hurt their chances. And then just to move on into the new injuries for the Chargers, Mike Williams, who got hurt on Sunday, he hasn't practiced this week with his knee injury. He's considered week to week. They have already signed a wide receiver, so that kind of shows that Mike Williams more than likely won't be playing this Sunday. But if there's a week for them to miss those two guys, it might be this week against the Lions, to be honest. Denzel Perryman's been limited with an ankle injury. Michael Bagley, who's their kicker, who missed this last Sunday with his injury, he's been limited this week with the groin injury. I'm not sure if they're going to be trying to push him out there or roll with their punter again like they did against the Colts. The Lions, Jared Davis is still limited with the ankle injury. Taylor Decker's limited with a back injury. Deshaun Hand has been limited with an elbow injury, and Rashawn Melvin's been limited with a knee injury. As far as this game output, how this game will go, I think I'm leaning towards the Chargers to easily win this game, to be honest. Detroit, I just don't trust Matt Patricia and that coaching staff. They had a chance to lead with a victory against the Cardinals last week and just couldn't get the job done. Philip Rivers, he's just a smart player. He'll figure out a way to get the job done, even without Hunter Henry or Mike Williams. He'll lean on Keenan Allen more. I would imagine they're going to try to get the run game going more with Eckler and Justin Jackson. I think their defense has enough to get after Matthew Stafford, force him into terrible decisions, and contain that running game. I just don't trust the Lions, honestly. I think that the Chargers easily win this game. Moving on, this is one of the better games of the week. The Vikings are traveling out to the Green Bay to face the Packers. Couple news on both teams. Josh Doxson, who they signed last week, went to the IR. He could possibly return. That's another guy that just can't stay healthy, has all the talent, but just can't stay on the field. So we don't even know what you could have brought to the Vikings offense. And if he can return later in the season, that's when we'll get the answer to that. One kind of funny note I found with the Packers is Aaron Rodgers asked for fans not to do the wave when the offense is on the field. So after all this time, we have now found out that Aaron Rodgers gets upset over the wave. Kind of funny, in my opinion. I mean, after all this time, you said something, and you've been in the league for what, over 10 years now? You think you would have said something to the fans beforehand? As far as injuries, Mackenzie Alexander for the Vikings, he hasn't practiced with that elbow injury. That's expected. He's going to miss a few weeks. Pat Elflein has been he was limited with a knee injury. Mike Hughes is limited with a knee injury. We'll see if Mike Hughes can make his return since his ACL tear last year. See if this is the week they do it. With the Packers, David Bakhtiari, their left tackle, did not practice yesterday with a back injury. And if he's unable to go against that ferocious defensive front of the Vikings, it'd be a long afternoon for Green Bay. Oren Burks didn't practice with his chest injury. Jimmy Graham was limited with a finger injury. Kevin King has been limited with a hamstring and chest injury. And Jair Alexander was limited with a knee injury. How do I think this game's going to go? Is an NFC North rivalry game. I think it's going to be a close game just because of Aaron Rodgers. Now, if Bakhtiari does not play, I could see this being a long afternoon for Green Bay, and the Vikings easily can easily walk away with a win. Now, I do know this because one of my good friends is a Vikings fan, but he brought up, though, if the Vikings win this Sunday, it's going to be like over 1,000 days since the Packers beat the Vikings. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. I didn't realize the Minnesota dominance over Green Bay over the last few years. So I'm sure Green Bay is going to want to win at home against the Vikings. That's why I think it'll be a tough game. But after how good the defense played last week for the Vikings, I think the Vikings win this. I mean, the Packers look shaky on offense. Aaron Rodgers didn't look like himself. And like I said, Bakhtiari is not even going to be 100% of himself, and he still plays. It's probably going to be a long afternoon for that line because their line didn't look that great. They were giving up quite a bit of sacks against the Bears last week. So I think the Vikings win. I do think since it's on the road in Green Bay, they'll have to squeeze out that win. I think they win by a field goal or maybe a touchdown, something like that. But I have the Vikings winning this game. Moving on, Jacksonville will be traveling out to Houston to play the Texans. A couple news are on this. Now, since the Nick Foles getting placed on IR, the Jaguars actually traded a fifth-round pick to the Steelers for Josh Dobbs. He's just going to be a backup for them. They're going to roll with Gardner Minshew. I don't anticipate we'll see Dobbs unless something happens to Minshew or Minshew is just playing terrible. With the Texans, after he was part of the play that gave up the game-winning field goal to the Saints on Monday night. The Texans cut Aaron Colvin, their cornerback. They actually signed him to a 4-year, $34 million in this past offseason. They cut him after one game. So that's already resulting in $10.515 million in dead money. And again, this just shows why you need a general manager, because Bill O'Brien is doing that initial coach reaction where he just blames one player, not himself, not the coaching staff, who was playing off coverage at the end of the game against Drew Brees. But he blames one player and he cuts him just after one game. It's kind of crazy to me. Now, as far as injuries, the Jaguars are banged up. I mean, Cam Robinson, their tackle, is limited with a knee injury. Marcel Darius is limited with an elbow injury. The rookie tight end Josh Oliver is yet to practice this season with a hamstring injury. Yannick Ngakoue he did not practice with a hamstring injury. Calais Campbell was limited with a foot injury. I do want to add note, they did say that they anticipate Ngakoue and Campbell will play on Sunday. Marquise Lee has been limited with a knee injury. AJ Bouye was limited with a hip injury, and Ronnie Harrison was limited with an ankle injury. So their team's pretty banged up for coming off a week 1 game. Now, obviously, pay attention to these injuries. Sometimes they just limit them throughout the week, and they can easily play on Sunday. But it's always good to know what significant players are banged up. Moving on, DeAndre Hopkins, I did not know he was hurt, but he was limited this week with a rib injury. But if anybody paid attention to the injury reports last year, DeAndre Hopkins was banged up all last year. The guy is a warrior, so he definitely will be playing this week. As far as who wins this week, it's got to be Texans, right? I mean, their offense looked good they're all outside the left tackle. Their offense looked good against the Saints. They still were giving up sacks. Deshaun Watson was still getting banged up. The Jaguars have the capability after Deshaun Watson, but I think that they have enough playmakers that defense of the Jaguars not only is banged up, but I thought they were giving up too many easy passes. Yes, it's Patrick Mahomes, but he was basically playing catch with his wide receivers last week. So I don't know if there's like some already turmoil going in that Jacksonville locker room. And of course, it's Gardner Minshew, a 6th-round pick who I think could be a quality backup, but he's going on the road. So I look at that defense. That defense of Texas is not great at all, but J.J. Watt should try to get after the quarterback, make that one significant play where it just disrupts Minshew's flow throughout the afternoon. I think the Texans should easily win this game. Now, if they do lose or if it's a close one, you kind of wonder about that team heading forward. Moving on to probably the worst game of the week is the Patriots are traveling down to Miami. There's Julian Davenport, he was already a suspect offensive lineman as it is. He was part of the trade with Laramie Tunsil. He already broke his leg, and he's going to be out several weeks. Marcus Cannon for the Patriots was limited with a shoulder injury. Albert Wilson has not practiced with a hip and calf injury for the Dolphins, and Rashad Jones has not practiced with an ankle injury for the Dolphins. I mean, guys, you're going to hear this every week. The Dolphins are tanking. Like, I'm never going to pick the Dolphins to win this week unless something completely flips around. What's a surprising stat as we enter this game is I think it's since 2015, Tom Brady has as many losses in Miami as he does in New England. So the Patriots just do not play well in Miami. But you got to be a degenerate gambler if you're going to be putting any money on the Dolphins to actually pull this one off. I'll be very surprised if there's another Miami miracle. Look for the Patriots to easily walk away with the game. And just like the Ravens last week, I would anticipate all their starters are on the bench resting by the fourth quarter. So, yeah, like I mentioned, I think the Dolphins are going to easily lose against the Patriots. Now, I had an update come up on my phone I just saw, guys, so I'll go ahead and update it. But Joe Mixon is practicing today. So if you're a fantasy owner, it looks like he might be good to go, might push through his ankle injury. So that's something to monitor. And if he does play, that will help the Bengals' chances. But I still think the 49ers will end up pulling that one off. Now, moving on to the afternoon games, the second half of Sunday, with the Kansas City Chiefs are traveling out to the Oakland Raiders. As expected, Tyreek Hill hasn't practiced this week with a shoulder injury. He's going to be missing 4 to 6 weeks. With the Raiders, they actually did place Jonathan Abram, their first-round rookie safety, who looked great on Monday night, on the IR with a shoulder injury, so he's done for the season. Surprisingly, Garyon Conley, who got carted off on Monday night, is expected to play this Sunday. Some of these football players are warriors, man. After getting carted off, you would never expect a guy to play the following week. I mean, this isn't the first time, but it's good to know that guy's healthy and ready to roll. Gabe Jackson still hasn't practiced with his knee injury, and J.J. Nelson still hasn't practiced with his ankle injury. Honestly, with Abram being out, the young leader of that defense, that defense is young. They're faster. They did look good, but I think Patrick Mahomes is going to throw all over that defense. It's going to be a high-scoring game, but I think the Raiders end up winning easily by 10-plus points. It could be closer because it's an AFC West matchup, but I don't think the Chiefs – I think the Chiefs easily walk away with a win, but we'll see how the Raiders look. And maybe they can try to play ball control with Josh Jacobs. That's probably their only way they're going to be able to stay in, is playing ball control and trying to force as many 3-and-outs and getting off the field on defense as possible and getting turnovers. That's probably their only best chance to win that game. Moving on this has got to be the game of the week, right? New Orleans Saints traveling to the Rams. Last time they faced, obviously the botched call. Aqib Talib said that's New Orleans' problem, not our problem. I love that quote by Talib. No major knees injury. Sheldon Rankins, he probably won't play. He's still coming off that Achilles injury, but he's limited in practice. Marquise Williams has been limited with a groin injury this week, and Ryan Ramczyk, their tackle who shut down J.J. Watt, he's been limited with a thigh injury. Eric Weddle, he's been limited with a concussion injury with that laceration he had last week. I think the plan is he will play. And Clay Matthews has been limited with a back injury. Obviously, I think the Saints are going to come out fired up, right? They're going to be pissed off from losing that game against the Rams, but this is out in LA. This isn't in New Orleans. They're not in a dome in this game. I honestly the Saints pass defense looked really bad last week. They should have won that game easily, and then they gave up 2 big throws to Deshaun Watson to give up that lead. So their pass defense is a little suspect right now. I think this is going to be a shootout potential. I think this is going to come down to the wire. This is one of those type of games where it probably will come down to who has the ball last. I'm just taking the Rams because the Rams are at home. They got Todd Gurley. They got Malcolm Brown was looking good. I think they're going to lean on that run game heavily. And, of course, they got 3 wide receivers that can tear up that pass defense. And so I'm thinking the Rams are going to probably not easily win this game, but I got them winning this game by 3 points, maybe like a 35-31 win. I could see that happening. So I think the Rams win this one. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a good shootout. But I also want to be surprised if, the Saints, like I said, they come out pissed off, jump up like 14-0 on the Rams, and the Rams got to battle their way back into the game to get that victory. So it's going to be a good one. That's going to be the one you probably are going to want on your TV when the late afternoon games get started. Moving on to the last afternoon game, the Chicago Bears are traveling out to the Denver Broncos. No major news. Trey Burton, he missed the last week, but he's been limited this week with that groin injury. Bryce Callahan has a foot injury that he's been limited with. Juwan James won't be playing. He's kind of out for a while with his knee injury, the right tackle. Todd Davis still working back from his calf injury. He's been limited this week. As far as how I think this game's going to go, I don't know how honestly I feel about this because the Chicago Bears offense gave us nothing to believe upon, but obviously they still have one of the better defenses in the league. The Broncos are at home, and yes, the Broncos did look terrible against the Raiders, but I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to talk out of school right now, but the Broncos have a relatively great record at home in September. So it'll be interesting to see how the Broncos defense plays at home, see if they can get some pressure on Trubisky, because Von Miller and Bradley Chubb were surprisingly shut out in week 1. Vic Fangio is the former defense coordinator of the Bears, so he's going to know what Matt Nagy tries to do as well. So I think this is going to be a very close defensive game. I think the Bears are the most talented team. So I'm going to give the Bears the win, but I think this is going to be a close game. I can see this being like a 17-14 type win for the Bears. It's going to be a defensive battle. And, of course, Vic Fangio and Chuck Pagano trying to outdo each other throughout the game. Now, moving on to the Sunday night game, this has a lot of scoring potential, I think. The Philadelphia Eagles are traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons. No major news. Fletcher Cox has been limited this week with a toe injury. As far as how I think this is going to go, I think this is going to be a shootout. I mean, we saw Case Keenum, out of all people, light the Eagles secondary up. Matt Ryan is a significantly better quarterback than Case Keenum. So that's how I think this game's going to go. The Falcons defense did not look good at all against the Vikings last week. They let the Vikings run all over them. I expect a heavy dose of Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard all throughout the night. I think there's going to be a lot of points put up. But I think the Eagles find a way to win. They got Carson Wentz. They got the guy if we get the guy that we saw in the second half, I think he's going to light things up with Deshaun Jackson, Alshon Jeffrey, Ertz. They just got too many weapons that they're going to be able to throw against the Falcons. I think that they're going to win in a shootout, and I think this is going to come down to being maybe like a 38-31 type game. I think both teams can go. I have the capability to go over 30 points each, and this might be also one of those games that can come down to the wire, come down to whoever has the ball last. So hopefully, fingers crossed, guys, that this is a lot better game than what we saw last Sunday night, because I don't feel like falling asleep on my couch again. Moving on. The Monday night game, obviously, just like every week, I'm not going to give my prediction on the Monday night game until the Cody Talks NFL Monday episode. So just stay tuned on that. Any news updates? One thing I found interesting is Odell Beckham Jr. came out this week and said Greg Williams, who's the former Browns defense coordinator, who's a defense coordinator now for the Jets, he's saying some Browns players have told him that Greg Williams told them to take him out during the 2018 preseason, which he got hurt in against the Browns. So Greg Williams refused to talk to media yesterday, but apparently I know he's supposed to talk to the media today. So stay out for quotes on that. That will be very interesting. That's something it's just, a little outside drama always feels a poor Monday night matchup now with Sam Darnold being out. Other than that, the Jets, they put Quincy Enunwa on the IR with a neck injury. I want to say that's the second neck injury of his career. So unfortunately because he's a pretty solid player when he's on the field. The result of that, they traded a 2021 6th-round pick to the Patriots for Demaryius Thomas. I kind of feel like it's just a swap of players right now. Thomas is still kind of banged up. We'll see if that helps them out. Now, Thomas does have a history with Trevor Siemian, who's going to start in place for Sam Darnold. So maybe Thomas might be a sneaky DFS play. I'm going fantasy right now because he might get a bunch of receptions because of his past chemistry with Siemian. Maybe there's something there on Monday night. Kind of just turned into a fantasy podcast for a second. Moving on. There was something, most people probably know about this, but Le'Veon Bell, there was an injury scare. He had an MRI done on the shoulder. He was dealing with a lot of shoulder soreness. Showed no damage, but guys, that's just kind of expected. The dude took over a year off from football. It's his first game getting legit hit by NFL players. Of course, he's probably going to deal with severe soreness on Monday. When you would go that long without getting hit, it's just your body's not used to it, right? So I'm sure he woke up feeling like, man, is my shoulder together or what? And then, of course, my wonderful producer, Rob Top. Like we always say, guys, he always puts these questions. I have no anticipation of it, so I'm not necessarily prepared. Top 3 teams I could see Mika going to. I kind of hinted at it. I think and I got this from our boy Roy Countryman from from Blitzalytics. Which he suggested, which makes sense. The Steelers, they could definitely need him. They need safety help. That secondary looked terrible. And he's a winner, and he fits that type of culture that the Pittsburgh Steelers have, which is why I also think the Seahawks could use him. We saw what happened when Tedrick Thompson led up that big play to John Ross at the end of the second half. Obviously losing Earl Thomas, they need a leader in that secondary. They got the key pieces, right? They got Clowney out front. They got Bobby Wagner at the backer position, and they don't have like that playmaker at the third level position. When you get those playmakers at the first level, second level, and the third level of the defense, that's when your defense can be really good. So Seahawks make sense. Maybe like the Texans, they could use them, right? Now I'm thinking about it, they have a history of doing deals with each other. So maybe the Texans could be a landing spot for him. But yeah, honestly, I think like I said earlier, I could see a lot of teams going after him. That's something to monitor over the coming days. Other than that, thank you guys for tuning in for the Friday episode of Cody Talks NFL. If you guys have any suggestions, any questions, please reach out to me at Cody Talks NFL on my Twitter handle. I'll always reply to anybody that messages me. Other than that, please like, subscribe. Always, too, guys, please like and subscribe our Blitzalytics podcast network. This audio version will always be on there. If you're listening to this on the podcast network of the audio version and you want to see my ugly mug talk about football, please head over to YouTube and please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It does wonders for us, guys. And yeah, can't wait for week 2 and Blitz out.